Welcome to Our Halfling, where we talk about Lord of the Rings and a little bit about D&D, so let's get to it. Today we're going over Chapter 15 of the Noldor in Beleriand. So the chapter begins with us with Turgon being shown by Olmo the hidden veil of Tumlodin. And it says that this veil is only reached by the eagles of Thorondor, that the mountains around it are so tall that nothing else can get in, and that the only entrance into this veil is through the water that dives deep under the mountains and comes back up and joins with the river Sirion. And it's through this way that almost shows Turgon how to get to the veil. And that when he gets inside, Turgon sees this island hill that's covered in green on a stone, and that he knows that this is the perfect place to build a city in the likeness of Tirion upon Tuna. So Turgon goes back to Nevras, doesn't tell anybody what he's seen, keeps all of this a secret, and takes time to plan out how he wants to build the city. Well, after the Battle of Dagor Egloreb, the glorious battle, Olmo begins to set upon Turgon's heart to go back to Tumlodin, to go back and begin building his city. So Turgon takes with him the strongest and most skilled people he knows to go and aid him in building his city. And there they set up a watch around the mountains to make sure that nobody that they don't want in will come in. And Olmo also protects the waters to prevent anyone that Turgon doesn't want to enter can enter. So Turgon mainly stays in Nevras and Vinemara, but it takes 52 years for the city to be built. And when the city is built, Turgon names it Ondorlinde, or in the speech of Valinor, which means the rock of the music of water. However, the Sindar have a name for it as well, and it gets changed to Gondolin, the hidden rock. So Turgon begins to leave Vinemar and go to Gondolin when Olmo appears to him and gives him a message saying, all right, you're going to go to Gondolin, and I'm going to continue to protect you and the Vale by Sirion, and only those that you want to enter will be able to find the entrance into Gondolin, and that Gondolin will be the longest realm of the Elderly against Melkor. But don't become too prideful in your work, and remember that your hope and the hope of the Noldor still ultimately lies in the west, in the Valar. And Olmo also reminds Turgon that he is still under the Doom of Mondos, and that not even he can protect him from that. And that the curse of the Noldor will eventually come through, and it'll be by treason, and it'll be by this that everything will just die in fire. But that he'll know when the end is near when a messenger from Nevras comes to him. And this will be the hope of elves and men. So he tells Turgon to leave behind armor and a sword so that the messenger can bear them, and this will be how Turgon will recognize the messenger and not be deceived. So Olmo tells him exactly what to leave behind, what helm, mail, and sword to leave behind for this messenger. And then Olmo returns to the sea, and Turgon begins his journey to Gondolin. So he gathers his people, which are a third of the host of Fingolfin, and also has a larger group of Sindar going with him as well. And that they go secretly to Gondolin in small companies and small groups. They'll begin to go to Gondolin. And that Turgon and his household is the last group to finally leave. And when they do leave, Nevras is, empty, and nobody knows where this huge amount of people have gone to, that they've just all vanished. And so the people of Gondolin remain hidden for years, and only Hurin and Huror enter, and that everybody else remains there and doesn't leave until the Year of Lamentation 350 years later. But here the people thrive and make Gondolin just as beautiful as Tirion. And that the walls are tall and wide, the stairs are smooth, the Tower of the King is tall and strong, there's beautiful fountains, and the courtyard of Turgon, he has crafted trees in the likeness of Valinor. He names the golden tree Glingal, and the tree with silver flowers he names Belthil. But that the most beautiful wonder of Gondolin is Turgon's daughter Idril, or Celebrimbor, the Silverfoot. And she had golden hair like Laurelin. And so therefore Turgon lived in happiness and in bliss for years. But Nevrast remained deserted and empty until the ruin of Beleriand. So now the chapter goes back a little bit and says, while the city of Gondolin was being built and Finrod was building Nagathron, that Galadriel was living in Doriath with Thingol and Melian, and that sometimes Galadriel and Melian would talk about Valinor, talk about the days of old, but that Galadriel never spoke of anything happening after the destruction of the trees. And Melian caught on to this pretty quickly and comes out and tells Galadriel, she can tell that Galadriel and the Noldor are hiding something, and that, Melian can't see, anything to the west. She's not receiving any visions, any thoughts, and that all of Aman, Valinor, and even the sea is just casted in shadow. And she goes, what exactly are you hiding? And so Galadriel says, what's in the past is in the past. Leave it in the past. I just kind of want to be happy for now. Trouble will soon find us. And Melian goes, I know that the Noldor were not sent by the Valar. Because if you remember at this point, the Sindar are kind of under the belief that the Valar sent the Noldor to aid them against their fight against Morgoth. But Melian is here saying, I know that's not true, because the Noldor never mention anything about the Valar. They've never given a message to Thingol about the Valar, and they've never given a message to Thingol from his brother Oldway or any of their kinsmen. So I know that the Noldor are not, with the Valar. So why exactly were the Noldor exiled, and what has the House of Feanor done? She knows that there's some sort of evil upon them. And she tells Galadriel, am I close to the truth? And Galadriel goes, well, yeah, kind of, but we weren't exiled. We chose to go on our own, against the Valar and despite the Valar. And we had to go through our own trials, and we came to fight against Morgoth for vengeance and to retrieve back what he's stolen. So now Galadriel tells Melian about the Silmarils and about, the death of Finwë, but she still leaves out the oaths, the kinslaying, and the burning of the ships at Losgard. So Melian tells Galadriel, okay, you've told me a lot of things, but you're still hiding something. You haven't said anything about your journey from Tirion to here, and I think that's something that Thingol should know. And Galadriel goes, well, probably, but I'm not going to be the one to tell you. So Melian drops it. She goes to Thingol and tells him about the Silmarils and says, the Silmarils are of more importance than the Noldor or even Feanor understand, that all of Arda is tied in to these Silmarils, and she believes that the Eldar are never going to be able to retrieve the Silmarils, and that many battles are going to come because of them. And here she says that she believes that Feanor has killed, and that she believes that others have killed as well, but that the first death was Finwë, his friend, by Morgoth before he fled Aman. And so Thingol kind of takes a minute. He doesn't say anything. He's now grieving the loss of his friend. And finally he says, I now know why the Noldor came, and that it wasn't to our aid, that the Valar didn't send them. And he says that basically he shouldn't be surprised by that, because the Valar leave everybody that's in Middle-earth to their own devices. And so to expect that the Noldor came from the Valar was kind of a ridiculous thought. But the Noldor are here, and they're going to be a great defense against Morgoth. And Melian agrees, but says that they still need to be very careful of the Sons of Feanor, that the Valar are particularly angry with them, and for some reason. She doesn't quite understand why, but she does believe it has something to do with their kin, and that the princes of the Noldor are all divided, and so they need to be kind of cautious about this. And Thingol says, I don't care. He's only heard about Feanor. What he has heard about Feanor is all great. Fëanor wanted to come to free, the Noldor, to free elves, and he's coming to avenge his father. Like, I can't say anything bad about that. And Thingol says, I don't particularly like his sons, but they're great warriors, and they're going to be our best defense against Morgoth. So Melian here says, their swords and their counsels shall have two edges. Well, soon after this, rumors began to spread throughout the Sindar. The Sindar are very trustworthy people and have no idea that these rumors are coming from Morgoth, that their trustfulness is perfect for Morgoth's ability to sow deceit. And this becomes his first, attack of malice. And now the people are learning what the Noldor did before coming to Beleriand. So it gets to Círdan, and he's very wise, and he knows that these are rumors, and he believes, though, that even if these rumors have just a small fraction of truth, it's something that Thingol should know. At this point, though, Círdan is under the assumption that the rumors are being spread by the princes of the Noldor out of jealousy of each other. So here, the sons of Finarfin are guests of Thingol, there to visit their sister Galadriel, when Thingol receives his message from Círdan. And Thingol is mad. And he tells Finrod, how dare you keep such a secret from me? I know now all that the Noldor have done. Well, Finrod is kind of startled. He doesn't know what to say. He's kind of taken aback. He tells Thingol, what exactly have we done? What have the Noldor done in your realm? We haven't tried anything against your kingship or against your people. What are you talking about? And Thingol tells Finrod that he has a lot of nerve to be in his home with blood on his hands after what he has done and slaying the people of his mother. And do you have anything to say for yourself? You're not even going to apologize for what you've done? Well, Finrod doesn't know what to say because he doesn't really feel like he can defend himself without putting other people down. So he kind of just stays quiet. However, Angrod has already kind of received this nonsense from Kerenthir, basically on the other side, though, saying, yeah, your mother was of other kin, but don't forget who your father is. Well, now Thingol's giving him the reverse of that, and Angrad's over it. And so he speaks up. He says, I don't know what you've heard. I don't know what lies you've been told, but we haven't done anything, and the only thing that we're guilty of is following and listening to Fëanor and being drunk on his word. That we didn't do anything, and we've already suffered, and we've been forgiven of our deed. And for this, you're going to call us liars? We've remained silent out of loyalty and therefore have angered you, but you know what? Now I'm going to tell you the truth. And he goes off against the House of Fëanor and tells him all about the kinslaying at Alqualande, the Doom of Mandos, and the burning of the ships at Losgard. And he says, should we that cross the Helcaraxe carry the name of kinslayer and traitor? And Melian says, well, you are still under the Doom of Mandos, though. So, just as a recap, Fëanor began the fight against the Teleri. And Fingolfin's group didn't have any context, saw the fighting, and joined in on the fighting. Later, Finarfin's group came, and he was like, I don't want any part of this. And part of that group went back to Valinor, where he's now king over the Noldor, but obviously his sons continued to go with Fingolfin. So they were not part of the kinslaying, but they did continue on the journey and therefore are still under the Doom of Mandos. And so that's kind of what Melian is pointing out here. So Thingol finally tells them, I'm angry. Y'all need to leave. You can come back later. You are still kin, but I'm mad and you need to kind of leave me alone for a bit. And he says, my kin is still allowed in. I'll still remain friends with Fingolfin and his group because they served their punishment when they crossed the Helcaraxe. And really, Fëanor should be the one bearing the punishment, bearing all of my grief, but he's gone, so there's nothing we can do about that. However, Thingol says that if he ever hears anyone speaking the language of the Noldor or answering to the language of the Noldor, that they will be called kinslayers and betrayers of kin unrepentant, that he never wants to hear this language again. So now the sons of Finarfin leave Menegroth and they now kind of spend time thinking about the Doom of Mondos and how they're still under this curse, and it's, eventually going to get to them. The Sindar, they hear Thingol's command, and they do not speak or answer to the language of the Noldor. And that now, that language is only spoken amongst the lords of the Noldor in private, and it kind of becomes this language of lore. So now, eventually, Nargothrond is built. Turgon is still in Vinyamar when the sons of Finarfin and Galadriel all come together for this big feast. And Galadriel goes to Finrod and says, why haven't you taken a wife? Why aren't you married? And Finrod says, an oath I too shall swear, and must be free to fulfill it, and go into darkness, nor shall anything of my realm endure that a son should inherit. And it says that this is kind of like a very sudden coldness from Finrod, and that before he actually loved a woman named Mari, who was a Vanya, but she didn't come with him during the exile. And so my kind of understanding of this is that basically he doesn't want a son to inherit his doom. That's kind of how I was reading it. But yeah, that's the end of this chapter. I hope you guys enjoyed this chapter. It definitely made me feel better to know that the truth is now out. I have been really struggling with people not telling the full truth, and now it's all out. And Thingol is a great and compassionate leader. Like, he understood where the blame needed to lie, and since nothing could be done about Feanor, that they were just going to kind of move forward. And I think that's amazing of Thingol. I also love how Melion is really kind of putting people in their places. Like, don't forget, I know what you're hiding, and don't forget that you're still under the Doom of Mondos. Like, I love how she's kind of putting people in their places. So I enjoyed this chapter. I hope you guys did too, and I hope you guys have a wonderful week, and may your homes be filled with food and cheer. Bye!